Alrighty guys, welcome back to the course. So now we're going to be going over chart patterns. Um, there's a ton of different kinds of chart patterns. So you're going to have to learn them all, at least most of them. But the ones we're going to be going over today, most common ones. And we use chart patterns to find places to buy or sell a stock, or go long or go short. Chart patterns are basically just a combination of support and resistance lines that make some sort of memorizable pattern. So let's just go over these here. So these are all the main different kinds of patterns. So here you'll have to memorize all these. So just come back to this, go back to the charts, try and find these, memorize them. But they're not that hard to remember. You have a bearish double top, so there's a top here and a top here. It's bearish. You have a head and shoulders. So that's your left shoulder, head, right shoulder. Here you have a bearish rising wedge. So again, this is just connecting a support line and then connecting resistance lines, as you can see. Support, boom, boom, boom. Resistance right there. That's a bearish pattern. Bearish expanding triangle. So really all you're doing with all these wedges, triangles, triple bottoms, pennants, all these things is you're just connecting support lines and resistance lines, right? So yeah, let's go on to the next slide here. So this is an example of, I just have a couple examples here. So falling wedge, right? This is a real example on the ES. So here we have a resistance line, excuse me. So we connected this point to this point, and it's not the most beautiful, but it still works, right? And then we rejected here and here. That's our resistance line. Here's our support line. Boom, boom, boom. And it is a falling wedge, right? It's falling, and we created a wedge, as you can see from this slide. This bullish flag pattern is basically what this falling wedge is. Or you could say it's this bullish falling wedge too. But it's more of just a wedge, right? And you can see once we broke out of this wedge, we ran up. So this is a double top right here, right? This happens a lot. This is a really high quality setup for shorts, especially when you're in a supply zone. So here we have a top. So like, it hit a certain point, pulled back, we came back up. And the way I use double tops is it doesn't need to be perfectly at the same point at the top, right? So you can see here it's a little lower than up here, but we want it to at least be around the body of this candle, right? So this candle that topped out, the body's right here, it lines up with the body. So that'd be a good double top. And then you can see we also had a support line here. We bounced roughly 1, 2, 3 times, and then we broke through. So there's a double top. This red box is in supply, which we'll talk about later. And then we broke through both of those. That's a really good short, and you can see we pulled back quite heavily there. So now let's look at a bearish rising wedge. So you see how these support and trend lines are expanding, right? So here we have a resistance line. I just connected this high, right? The high of this candle and the high of this candle. Created our little resistance line, and then I connected this and this, created our support line, right? Once we broke through, we came back up, kind of retested this line. And remember, when a support line is broken, it then turns into a resistance line. And when a resistance line is broken, it turns into support. So this support line is broken, turns into resistance. Right here we reject, then we fall. So let's go see if we can find some examples of this right now. So pulling up Apple, let's see if we can see anything. Here I'm going to connect the low of this point to the low of that point, right? You can see we kind of have a support line going here. We've been bouncing off this support probably 3-4 times, right? So that's a decent support line. Let's see if we connect it back here. Look at that. If you connected this point and this point, right here, the low and this low, you would have gotten the bounces here. So this looks like a pretty good support line. If we did break through this support line, we'd most likely be heading down. Now let's see if there's any resistance lines. If we connect these, boom, look at that. So we have connected this point and then these points, and you can say we've also here. Again, it doesn't have to be exactly pinpoint, right? So there's 4 ejections, roughly 3-4 bounces. This is a rising wedge, right? So it's stock's moving up, it's rising, and it's wedging, right? And this is a bearish pattern. So most likely at some point today we're going to see it come back down, break through, and then head back down. And let's see if we can find, let's pull up Tesla. So Tesla, here we have, you can say that is a resistance line, counter reject here, and here, right? And then you can say this is a support line. So this is a falling wedge. It's not the biggest falling wedge, but it is a falling wedge. And falling wedges are actually bullish, right? So I mean, at some point, this is most likely going to break out. But you know, this isn't the. Usually, you want a falling falling wedge to look something like this, right? Something like that. This is a little more flat on this support line, so it could break to either way. We'll just have to see. But it's also, there's a good example of a double top somewhere yesterday. So look at this. So this red box is our supply zone, which we will teach you later. You can see we kind of rejected our area in supply, fell down, came back up. Right here lines up with the top of this body, right? So that's a double top. And then what happened? We fell hard, right? And that is a great example of a double top right there. That's a very high quality play. You should usually always try and go for those when you see them. But those are just some examples. There's going to be a lot of examples. You're gonna see a lot of these every day, day to day. You'll have to memorize them, learn them, because they are very important. But on to the next.